All right, guys, we are making things happen here. I got the engine out of the tracker, which is right here, the 2.0. I didn't film it. I didn't do a how-to. There's already stuff like that on YouTube that you could search for yourself. The main purpose here is just to kind of show you what I plan on doing to make the 2.3 work as easy as possible to fit into the Samurai. And basically the ideal behind it is I'm just using the long block from the 2.3 and adding the intake, exhaust, and a couple of the components onto the 2.3. So the wiring harness from the tracker clips right in as if it was a 2.0. So let me show you the ideal behind all this. Obviously the motors on the outside are relatively identical as far as the block and head and whatnot. And the sensors on the intake manifold are probably the biggest difference between the two motors. The 2.3 does have a bigger throttle body and the intake's different. So what I was going to do is completely take off this whole intake and bolt it onto the 2.3. And also this 2.3 manifold points straight down, where the 2.0 actually points towards the back since it's a rear-wheel drive configuration. The other main difference that I am going to remove is on the 2.0 for the coolant intake. They're on the back of the engine, and it has its two pipes for the heater core, but then it has a crossover tube that takes you all the way to the front. This is unique to the 2.0, and that's all going to be taken off and installed on the 2.3. Everything else is relatively the same. Obviously, since I'm going with the manual transmission, all the clutch components are coming off and going on the 2.3 as well. While I am doing all this, I am going to pull the cover off to check the timing chain. It's likely I'm just going to replace it. I have no evidence of it ever being replaced. So just to save myself, I'm going to probably likely replace the guides and the tensioner and the chains for the timing. Likely going to do the oil pump and the water pump as well. One of the things I do need to figure out is I'm not going to be running AC or the power steering. I couldn't find any bypass idling pulleys to take its place. I might just reconfigure the belt to work without it. I haven't seen anybody else do it or have any information on the web that kind of addresses this, but it's not rocket science. I'm sure I could figure it out. That's where I am now. I will go ahead and start working on this, and I'll probably do a time warp of me working on it. Everything's pretty straightforward. Just unbolt it, bolt the other stuff back on. I am going to use the 2.3 injectors, even though I'm using the 2.0 intake manifold. Supposedly this all works. It's already been done before, and I shouldn't have too many issues. So we'll see how it goes. I'll get that done fairly quickly, likely tomorrow, and I'll edit the video and post it online for you guys to see where I'm at. If you have any questions, let me know. Obviously, this is kind of a learning process for me. Hopefully, we don't run into too many snags, and hopefully this helps people along the way. All right, let's get to it. Another part that needs to be swapped out is the oil pan and the pickup tube. The 2.3 obviously is a front wheel drive setup, and the pan is not really in the right location as far as clearances for the axle and whatnot. On the 2.0, we'll have room up here for the axle, and the sump part is towards the back of the engine, so that is definitely needed. The pickup tube in here as well will be swapped as well. All right, I think that's it. Hopefully I didn't forget too much. we're plugging away. I have most of the components that need to be swapped out, removed from both engines. I need some gaskets and stuff like that. One of the things I wanted to check out was the timing chain on the 2.3. Typically a timing chain lasts the life of the engine, but it seems fairly common on these engines that the timing chains go. So it has me a little concerned. So I pulled off the cover to expose the chain itself, and it doesn't look terrible, but I'm in here anyways, and there is, you know, some side play. I don't know what's considered okay, but it's just one of those things. You know, if I don't do it, I'm here. You know, I'm going to think about it every time I run the engine. So I'm just going to go ahead and order the parts and just get this freshened up while it's open. And then at that point I could, you know, replace the parts, put the pans on, and get my intake and exhaust gaskets and a couple other little gaskets for the coolant lines and whatnot. And I should be able to keep on trucking along here. Everything came apart pretty well. The intake is a pretty tedious process to get to all the bolts and whatnot. I think it's worth it going the route I am, but we'll see once it's all done what kind of issues I run into. I'm sure some of the guys get the 2.3 harness and modify it or whatever and just use that 2.3 intake and make it work for them. It's just a little bit easier for me in this scenario with my donor car and stuff like that to just get the 2.0 intake on the 2.3 and use all the sensors that came with the 2.0. All right, well, I'm gonna order the parts. I suspect it's probably gonna take me 3 or 4 days to get some of this stuff. So I'll make the next part, put in all the stuff back together and getting it ready to go inside the Samurai. All right, well, hopefully you enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know.